So I want to talk about the mangas I've been reading this like past month. So so the first one like I've been like reading for a while now is like SSS Ranker's Return. Um I really like enjoy this manga or manhwa. It's about this guy who is one of the top players in this game, and he basically gets targeted by this guild called Ragnarok, and he keeps getting PK'd, and he's really stubborn. Like he's like he's a toxic gamer basically, and so he just keeps coming at them, and eventually like he loses all his items, like he just gets super like sad and like mad and like dies from the stress. Then he gets reincarnated, and so like from there he like decides like I'm gonna take revenge against this guild, but he kind of does it in a way like where he wants to let them build themselves up before he takes them on. So it's like, all right, man, like it's easier if you just take them out now, but it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those series where like they make it so serious at times, um, that it's kind of like, dude, like it's like a video game, but it's I don't know, it knows it's being over the top, so it's kind of good at the same time. Like the main character is just so like crazy. It's like it's just funny at times. It's also like cool. It doesn't do it in a way where it's like, man, like this is so cringy, or like, well, it is cringy at times, but or it's like so like, oh man, like come on now. Like for example, he took this item from this guy in the game, and the guy knew him in real life from his ex girlfriend, and so there was he actually his house did actually get stalked, or he was about to get jumped, but um, he kind of ran into the wrong house, so he got jumped instead. But yeah, stuff like that where it's like they try to make it serious, but it's kind of like, come on, it's like a video game, like it's kind of a bit ridiculous. And it's kind of like problem with like these type of series where the game is taken so seriously that it just doesn't feel realistic if there was actually this type of full dive technology. Like yes, if the general population like got into this type of gaming, like the virtual like full dive type gaming, there probably would be like ransoming and jumpings and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think it would still be nerds playing this stuff because obviously it's like why would you escape reality? Doing video games, like most regular people use like alcohol and drugs and things like that to escape reality instead of like video games and stuff like that. So I don't know. It feels like a little unrealistic at times, but at the same time, of course, it's like a manhwa. So yeah. So next series I've been reading that's like popped up on a Star Scans is the Dark Mage's Returns. And essentially he gets summoned to this other world, and he doesn't want to be there, and he gets like summoned as this class as a Dark Mage, and everyone hates Dark Mages basically. So he kind of like saves the world, but like no one likes him basically. So it's kind of like, oh fuck this shit, and he doesn't want to be there. So as soon as he's able to, he's like, okay, save the world, I'm out. And basically he comes back, and he gets re-enlisted into the army to fight monsters because now hunters make a lot of money and stuff. So he's like, okay, let me do this because I don't have any money, and I want to play video games. That's funny, and it's just funny. He's like kind of like a nerd dork, and he gets back. He's like, oh, I want to play video games as soon as he gets back. So yeah, it only has like 7 chapters, I think. 9 chapters now, but it's pretty good. Like it's nothing crazy. Like if you read a bunch of isekais and stuff, then it's not anything crazy. Next one I've been reading is this Chinese manga named Demonic Evolution. So this warrior dies from fighting like the biggest, baddest demons essentially, and he goes down as a legend. And they're able to like stave off the demons to like a certain like points, I think. And yeah, and so he dies, and then what ends up happening is he reincarnates 60 years later, and yeah, humanity's in a better position than it was when he was fighting. if I recall correctly. And yeah, I mean it's only like 4 chapters, so I don't. It's kind of like it's like okay, like story seems like it's going a pretty good place, but I don't know. It's hard to tell like so far. It's kind of like it feels a little generic, of course, right? The whole okay, reincarnate, yada yada time, yada yada years, and then like life's getting better or life got worse, essentially. So it's one of those like life kind of got better, um, type of stories. But now he's like, okay, I'm back. Let's do our thing. But only 4 chapters basically, so it's hard to like say where the story's heading. So the next series I want to talk about is Fukushuu Kansuisha no Jinsei. Or excuse me, they're saying Avengers' second lifetime around in another world. So this guy basically gets reincarnated to another world where people who lived unhappy lives get reincarnated. So he is one of those stories where the world they get isekai'd into has a bunch of other transmigrators or people who've died in their world. And he kills himself because he got revenge on his sister's murderers. And then he's like, all right, I'm done with this life. So that's kind of like the cool plot twist. He's like looking for his sister in this world as well. So yeah, but it's kind of like your typical fantasy so far. Kingdoms, you got stats, dungeon conquering, demons, heroes, etc. So it's kind of like has this little twist, but it's nothing crazy. From so far that I've read, and I've read like hundreds of isekai so far. So me saying that is like this could be like a really good story too. But for me, it's like I've seen so many. I've read so many manga, and I've read so much isekai that kind of like, it's interesting, like plot twist, but or not plot twist, but the twist. It's interesting, but nothing like crazy. And of course, with isekai manga, there's not that many chapters. There's about 22 chapters for this one, but I think it's worth checking out. Everything I'm discussing, I think is worth checking out. So the next one that I saw was on Mangadex, the serial killer isekai. Had like a rating of 9, I believe. I was like, it doesn't look that good. But I started reading it. I was like, actually, this is kind of cool. It's like the killer. The guy is a murderer, and so he gets murdered, then he gets isekai, right? The killer kills the killers. It's your typical isekai setting, but it's kind of basically like a death game, but like isekai version. And instead, the guy is the one doing the hunting instead of, like trying to survive the death game, right? Yeah, and the art is really nice as well. So I think this one's worth checking out. It's pretty short so far. It's not anything like gonna waste your time or anything. Like it's definitely worth looking. It's definitely worth like reading the first couple chapters since it's so short. And so the next one I want to talk about is I tried to stop being the last boss. I pretended to be defeated by the main character and tried to live freely. So this translation's a bit iffy for this story, so kind of have to like, gotta have to live with it, or obviously learn Japanese, right? So the guy basically gets reincarnated into a game he's been playing for a long time, and he gets reincarnated as the last boss, and the protagonist just basically he lets the protagonist kill him so he can live freely, right? It's not one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna like kill the main character right now. It's like, no, let me just let the story go on. Right? It's like, why let things be unpredictable when I can just let the story move on how it's supposed to, and I can just manipulate the story to go in a way that I want to, right? In the shadows. So basically, he lets the main character kill him, and he starts like, you know what? Let me just control the story from the background. It kind of reminds me of Overlord, where he's kind of like controlling the world and behind the scenes almost. So it does give me a lot of Overlord vibes actually. So I think if you like Overlord, this series would be good. So he kind of like wants to. So after like he gets killed, he kind of wants to go on and live this peaceful life without chaos. But he realizes that living with low life sucks. So he's like, yeah, I'm done with this. Let me go do adventuring and all that stuff. essentially he becomes an adventurer and tries to rule the world from the shadows. And he has like these minions as well, like the seven demon lords. So it really does give you that Left 4 Lord vibes. Um, and like I was touching before, the translation's a bit. It's definitely funky at times. Like it's quite a liberal translation at times. Like it's like what the heck? I don't think they actually said this in the story, but it's kind of funny. But yeah, it's yes again. Like it's like one of those series where it's like, it's not that good. But it's kind of like worth like you know what? If you like isekai, it's probably worth like reading. Another isekai I've been reading was here is I was reincarnated on an island where the strongest species lives, so I enjoy a peaceful life on this island chapter. So this guy basically wants to live a peaceful life, and so he gets reincarnated onto an island without humans. And it turns out this island has like the strongest creatures in existence on it, but good thing he's also super strong. So yeah, that's basically kind of the main premise of the story. Is like he's reincarnated on this island with like dragons and like beasts, beast men, and all that other stuff. And it turns out he's like super super strong as well. Next story is about this alchemist who's basically deemed useless by his family, his clan, and so he gets banished to the Demon Lord's territory. And at the Demon Lord territory, they basically allow him to do his thing. And it turns out his skills as an alchemist are like super super valuable and rare, and not many people have his skill set. And so, yeah, it turns out he's like useful. So the story of the world essentially is like it's like a kind of like an isekai after story. Basically, like we're like a couple hundred years after the heroes like beat the demons, and they leave all this stuff behind, and obviously they go back to the world and things like that. So like it's kind of like an isekai, but not really. So and there's this divide between the demon world and the human world because of that. The the humans basically summoning the heroes, and so yeah, and it actually turns out the demons are pretty chill so far. So and also like the human empire didn't like realize how valuable Thor was, so they kind of like threw him away, obviously, because like everything is like power is like the most important thing in the empire. And I really like this story because it's like one of those stories where it's like, oh, the guy's like deemed useless, but then he's like actually valuable and like his talent is appreciated and respected. So he like feels like, oh man, like I'm not actually worthless. Like like all my hard work's being appreciated. It's kind of like one of those like isekai fulfillment stories where it's like, oh, everyone said I was useless, but actually I'm really useful and like people appreciate me. Like this is awesome. So that's what I've been reading so far. There's been a few other stories that I've been reading or kind of like catching up on, I guess. So like Disaster Hero and Damn Reincarnation, but I kind of stopped reading those because Disaster Hero was just bad. It's just not that good compared to what I've read so far. So I personally didn't like it too much. Um, Obviously, I like Solo Leveling, but this story just I don't know. It's just really generic. And also it's just kind of poorly executed at the same time. And another series that I've been reading is or I was catching up on was Damn Reincarnation. I started reading the manhwa again because I read the novel, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's one that series also like, but I stopped reading it quickly. I just wanted to see like some of the characters get drawn, but it's just one of those stories where it's like nothing in the story is unique. It's just executed well. So it's just one of those stories where it's just like, it's good, but it's nothing unique. Another one has been Youngest Swordsman Master. I started reading the manhwa a while back, but then I started looking at it again. It's good, but again, like I don't know. It's not fully translated, so but I really like that story just because like I haven't read this type of story where the clan is like the family clan is essentially like super super powerful, like so ridiculously influential they like affect world politics. So that was like first time I like reading one of those stories. So I really enjoyed it because of that. And I think it's just well executed. The ideas are not special, but it's just well executed essentially. Yeah, that's basically all I've been reading this past few um this past month or so. I haven't been to be completely honest. I haven't been reading that much manga lately because I haven't been like I haven't been finding stuff I've enjoyed lately. I've been like looking for stuff, but not I want to make I would like to make videos where like the manga I read like I'm actually like hey like you should actually like read this. There's this because there was this other manga I was thinking about reviewing but or talking about and this is about this guy who like is in love with this his idol and basically like is this only thing like keeping him alive or motivated to live. And eventually he gets killed and he reincarnates and then like turns into this like electric force thing and like he tries to help her become the number one idol in the world. It kind of like it was like a mix and match of like Yandere like and Death Note type of vibe reincarnation. It was to me it was like pretty good, but I wasn't like yeah I would recommend this. I'm like the story's kind of it's kind of generic, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I've been trying to like figure out what should I review and like what should I like talk about because I don't know what type. I don't know like obviously I don't know my audience that well, right? Because I only made a few videos so far, so I don't know like what people want to see because no one's left a comment or anything like that. So I'm not sure, obviously. Like, so I've kind of been tried to make a variety of videos, but it's been a little difficult because I'm just like I don't know what I should do because I'm like who should I like what should I like talk about. So I have like a bunch of video ideas, but so far it's been nothing crazy. And stuff like I was making to make a series about like martial art manga, seinen manga. Obviously, I've read a lot of isekai, so I I was gonna make a little like video on all the isekais I recommend, but I kind of don't think it's worth it because I haven't read those isekai and like they're just so forgettable. Like I have to like seriously read all of them again in order to like give a full assessment of them. But I have notes essentially on all of those. I have notes on my on all the isekai I've read, but it's not to the point where I'm like, oh, I remember like every single detail, right? It's very like I've just it's one of those things where it's like I've binge read all of them, and so I don't remember all the details, and like they're all so similar at the same time. So it's like I could put up together like a reading list, but I couldn't like tell you in exact detail um what I liked about these series and why you should give it a look. I might make because I was thinking of having a suggested reading list for isekais, but then like a must read. Like, okay, I actually like will talk about this in depth type of isekais where I'm like, okay, this is definitely like worth reading. Like for example, like Slime and Overlord. I think they're definitely worth reading. Yakuza's Reincarnated, I think is definitely worth reading. Stuff like that. And well, okay, yeah, I know people criticize me for Yakuza's Reincarnated because obviously it's kind of like, dude, it doesn't make the story doesn't make sense, right? But I say that just because it's so unique. I think it's like worth actually looking at, even though it kind of doesn't make sense. Kind of reminds me of reminds me of Shadow, where the story doesn't make sense unless you like have watched a lot of manga or watched a lot of anime and read a lot of manga, right? But that's like a series I would only recommend to like people who've been watching isekai and been reading isekai because the story doesn't make sense if you don't know the actual like reason, the actual like satire they're making, the actual satire, right? What they're making fun of in the series, right? Like all the like different arcs and stuff, like oh him being a mob character, you know, the school setting, the evil organization that's controlling the world, right? Like, you wouldn't understand this stuff if you haven't been reading isekai and stuff like that. So that's like another one of those things where it's like I wouldn't, right? There's isekai I would recommend. Actually, I wouldn't recommend isekai to any normal person, but that's a whole different discussion. All right, yeah, that's been what I've been reading this month, and just some like my afterthoughts and like videos I'm thinking about making.